Hey, hello. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Welcome to our latest Literally in Conversation with event. And this evening, I am so happy to be joined by the incredible author, Lexy Delorme, who writes the epic Limerent series. Oh, hello, everyone. Yeah, feel free. I love that, April. Get yourself in there. Get yourself in the chat box. Say hello to everyone. Maybe put a little message in there where you are. That'd be lovely to know. And I'm sure Lexy will mention where she is in a bit. So I've had the pleasure of working with Lexy now for a good few years, and it's been an absolute privilege to see her grow as an author, launching multiple books, building her author brand, being invited to talk on this panel and that panel, which I'm sure she'll talk us about in a minute, because she's just told me some exciting stuff that she's doing. We have this ability where we could fill an hour like that. So I have lots of questions, but I want you guys to have lots of questions too. So if you've got questions, then put them in the chat box if you wish, and we can ask them as we're going or towards the end, and we will make sure there's a good amount of time. This is not just going to be you listening to me and Lexy talking. It's going to be a really good amount of time at the end for you to ask questions. So anything that you want to ask Lexy about the books, about how to write a series, anything like that, then you are very welcome to do so. And we will let you unmute and actually talk, and we can have a chat. And we know that a lot of you who are watching live and on playback, because this will be going on to YouTube, and for a lot of people that weren't able to make it live tonight, we know that you're already readers of the Limerent series, so thank you first of all for your support. For Lexy, as an indie author, it means the world. Any author, but as an indie, it's even harder. So thank you so much. And for any of you who are new to Lexy's work, I'm just going to very quickly just give you a bit of an overview as to what the Limerent series is all about. So it's basically a blend of mystery and romance. Oh, more people coming in. We've got supernatural, we've got thriller, we've got a touch of horror, we've got time span, dimension span, and it really challenges readers to question boundaries between supernatural and everyday, past and present, society's expectations, lots of different big topics in these books. And it's basically very, very cool storytelling and genre defying stories. So we're going to get into that, the idea of writing a book that doesn't fit into a category neatly, which I love. So we've just finished, and I know quite a few of you that are watching this, like I get say on live or on playback, have been part of the tour. So we've just finished an online book review tour, and that's for Kaio, which is actually the opening book of the Limerent series. And we've had some really lovely, really detailed reviews, which again we really appreciate. Kelly at To Be Honest, who is one of our regular reviewers, has said, what an absolute delight of a read. Kaio is one of the books, one of those rare books that wraps you in mystery, magic, romance, and emotional depth and refuses to let go. Lexy does a fantastic job balancing the weight of grief, love, and personal struggle with an undercurrent of hope and possibility. The writing is vivid and heartfelt, and the plot has just the right amount of twists to keep you eagerly turning pages. Oh, what a lovely review. So, Lexy, welcome. How are you?
I am good. I am good. The every day when you're a writer, every day you're thinking, but I should be writing, right? So, but no, I think I've been really honored by the people's reviews, people's talking about it. I feel so honored when people actually have questions, when they're engaging with the characters, because I put a lot into these books for people to think about. And that's what I want. So I want those reactions back. And I love it when I see people really engaging. It's like, it's what my dream is for this.
Absolutely. So, well, that really does take away almost the perfect segue into my next question, my first question, which is the reason you're behind, your purpose for writing. Why do you write?
Mm.
I'm guessing it's partly that, like you say, the feedback that you get, but what else?
So I think for probably all writers write for particular reasons. So mentally, I write to answer my own questions.
Nice.
So I actually have lots of questions about the world, right? You look around and you see, oh my God, there's people who have chronic pain. Why? Right? Or there's people who have power and there are other better people who don't. Why? And so for me, that's creating a world or crafting something where I can answer those questions for myself. I can craft a reason for them. And as
Mhm.
someone, I will be open, as someone who's been a chronic pain sufferer since I was 5 years old, I wanted to have that conversation. Also, it's much easier than therapy.
Is it? Writing a book's really hard.
But I mean, it's like you all the emotions that you normally suppress and stuff, you have a place to put something. You have
Yeah.
somebody you hate, you can do, um,
You can do things with them
you
that
can
matter.
do things to them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think, but from an emotional sense, I think it is a way of sharing your heart with other people, like sharing the things that you love, that you have connection to, beliefs that you have strong feelings about. It's a way of touching people. Like I said, when I write books, if I'm not crying, you're not going to cry, right?
Mm,
If I want you to cry. So it's you, that's why I do it from an emotional perspective and to make kind of sense of the world to me.
love that. Thank you. All your books are, as we've mentioned, genre defying, cross genre.
Mhm.
So was that always from the outset like the plan, or did that just evolve?
So when I was growing up and reading stuff, I tended to not read just one genre. Like I read people, and I think also when I was coming up, because I'm ancient, when I was
Oh,
coming
no.
up in the world, there was less of a strict definition on genres, right? You
Yeah,
had people writing kind of a broader books.
true.
And so I realized that I don't think life is a genre. And I'm trying to craft moments in life, moments in people's lives. So for example, with in Kaio, the character of Sarah, you're seeing her at a moment in her life when she
Yep,
is weak, but she
yep,
was not always. She had
yeah.
moments where she wasn't. You don't make it through law school without some strength of character. So it's you can in your life can be a comedy for a while, or a few years later, it's a drama, or a few years after that, it's a romance. So I don't really tend to think of stories that, particularly that are crossing long periods of time, as being something that is defined by sitting in a particular niche. And I don't sit well in a niche as a person anyway. So
No, listen, that you are not a niche person. You are not a put you in a box and leave you there person. Let's be honest. I mean, I do think though that there is a very big over reliance in publishing, and I understand the reasons behind it, like where to put the book on a shelf, how to
yes.
market the book. I get it, but I think there's such an over reliance on this categorization of a book. And it's like it just isn't that simple. Plus, people don't just read one genre and only one genre. And what I love about your books and what I've noticed as I've been going through the review process with you and the marketing process with you is that people come to your books and they kind of go, oh, I don't usually read this kind of genre
Yeah,
because they've
I
picked up on
love
a horror
that.
element or they've picked up on a supernatural element. And it's like, yeah, but you like the romance stuff, don't you? And that's why you came here. And it's like, but now you've also seen you also like these things, and it opens your mind up to like different things, which I think is really cool.
And what I love about okay, I was going to make a weird cooking analogy, but it's a bit like cooking, right? So when you have to have the accent spice, right? If you're going to have something really sweet, there needs to be a little salt in it. It makes the sweet sweeter,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if you have a little horror in with your romance, it makes the romance sweeter.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that analogy. I
yeah.
love that. Oh, you're so good at this. So what are you currently working on? You said you just want to write all the time, obviously, because you're a writer. So what are you doing at the minute?
So right now I'm writing a new book that's further on in the series, but I'm working on editing Limerence, which will be the next book in the series. It should be out later this year. It's a very important book for the series, which is why I'm really taking my time. Normally we would have put something else in May probably, but I'm taking my time because this is an important book because it sort of switches the perspective. You're getting someone else's perspective that you've seen through these books, but you've never gotten his perspective before. And you're basically getting the other side of the story of this world, and you learn a lot about the world from
Mm,
this book. So this is a very important one to get, from my perspective, to get right as a writer, so that people can understand it and engage with it. So I'm lucky. In my family edits, right? And I have my son, who I think is on here, who is, he's the very detailed person, and he's looking at like the arcs and everything. And then I have my husband, who has no patience for anything that's like, he's just not, if you get too detailed, he doesn't want to go there. So I have to do this fine balance between a world that's actually somewhat complicated to describe, but in a way that it's going to catch people and not not get them bogged down too much in the detail. So this is that balance that I'm trying to write. And one of the ways that I, as an author, this is an authory writer type thing, balance it is that I've purposely made my writing style as simple as I can make it. Right?
Okay.
Don't do long compound sentences because I'm already giving you difficult concepts, I'm giving everybody difficult concepts to read. So I want the wording to be as clear as I can make it,
Mhm.
given the complex material. So that probably comes a little bit from the lawyery background because as a lawyer, you learn pretty quick that the people who use all the long wordy sentences and the blah, 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 blah are usually have nothing behind it. So, so you kind of learn to realize that clarity is really important in writing. And so, I want this world to be real for people. I want you to feel it. I want you to understand it like you live in it. And the
Yeah.
only way to do that is to be as clear as I can about it.
Yeah. It is very vivid and it's very immersive, I think, your writing. So it's
Thank you.
working. Um, if anyone doesn't have any questions, then please do feel free to put them in the chat because I'll ask a few more. But obviously, I am happy to give you the floor in a bit if you wish
I
to.
know some of you have questions. I know
Yeah,
you do.
they're probably thinking, I bet Helen's just going to ask it in a minute. I might not do. So yeah, don't assume that. So obviously we're talking about the series here. I mean, it's just after the online book review tour for Kayo, but we are really talking about the whole series. So tell us a bit more about where you see that going, where it's gone so far. Like, just talk about the series a bit more as a series rather than individual books. If that's
Yeah,
okay.
so the I set it up for the first three books of the series, which is Kaio, Fanning Fireflies, and Bright Midnights. And not everybody here has read all of the books.
No, no,
But those three books are foundational books for the series, and I made them that way purposely. You can read any of them in any order, right? They stand alone.
that's the beauty of it.
And so for those three, you don't need anything else. There's been always kind of a debate about the fourth book. The fourth book, Ghost Academy, is much better if you've read Bright Midnights.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, I can't compare it because I had, but yeah, it
yeah.
was good.
I've had some people say that it was fine without it, but for me as the author, I would say please read Bright Midnights before you read Ghosting. From here on out, the next book, Limerence, you probably could read as a standalone because it's completely a different view on it. And I'll just kind of throw out the rest of it. So there will be four more books in the series. Limerence is the next one. The one after that is called Mirrored Lands. The one after that is called Outliers, and the last one's called Verite. So, and they are already written
Is
in
that the
various
first time
stages
you've said that, like, to people?
of
I mean,
it
I know you said it to me, but like, is that the first time you've told like lots of people? That's so
is,
exciting.
yeah.
So say those titles again. Sorry.
Okay, so the next one's Limerence.
Yeah,
The one after that is called Mirrored Lands. The one after that is called Outliers, and the one after that is Verite.
love them.
So, and they're, like I said, they're all in various stages of edit at this
Yeah,
point, all written. Most of them, I think they've all had a first edit. Um,
that's it.
yeah, and I'm also working on another book from a character, the backstory of Majo, who was a character in Ghosting. So, I'm kind of always working on this stuff, but this series for me, um, at the kind of the emotional level, this
Yeah.
series is kind of about love, but even the horror bits, but in its most fundamental form, not as an emotion per se, but as a force, as something like gravity or like, time,
Mhm.
something like that. And it's also about reality and the different, like Kaio is about appearance versus reality. Like we talked a little bit about that before the call started. In the book Kaio, I'm not going to give spoilers because for those who might not have read it,
Yeah, there's
but
some people that haven't.
yeah, but in Kaio, things are not as they seem, right? The people who look like they're great maybe are not so much. So it is like digging from appearance versus reality, because I think in the world today, we're living in a world where so much is appearance oriented. We're all on social media where there's filters. We're all, we're in a place where we are really impacted by what we see quickly. We make opinions on 3 minutes of conversations that we have. And it's sort of me pushing back a little bit against that, saying there's a lot more to it than what you initially see with people, with things, with ideas, etc. So, that's kind of the first book. And the second book is kind of talking about a character who's had to fragment herself, and then how you adapt to other people's reality. So each one has a kind of a connection to reality because that's kind of the scope of the books.
And I'm just looking in the chat, and a question has come through, but people are also talking about how many of the books they've read, which is so lovely. So yeah, it's really nice. So Sophie's asked, hello Lexi, where do you find your stories, from the news or from your life? Maybe a bit of both.
So both, yeah, both. I tend to find that ideas come in different segments. It's almost like, photography was created by people from two completely different fields. A lot of times stories will come from two completely different ideas. So since we're talking about Kaio, I can go back to my initial that character of Kaio has been in my head for literally years. And it came about from I think it was in law school, and I was listening to someone on TV talk about this very kind of, controversial case about a teacher who got involved with a student. And I'm listening to it, making my sandwich and having and thinking, oh, yeah, she's awful, this horrible woman who did this. And then I heard somebody talking, someone else talking, and it's like talking about the nature of love and the nature of how love extends. And it was a guy, and I was like, oh, they brought a psychologist in, right? So, and I walked in, and it was the kid. He couldn't have been more than 17. And I just thought to myself, what would it be to be that kid, to be somebody who that would be like the worst, to be someone super, super, super emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature, but stuck in that body. And I thought, suppose they were stuck in that body forever, right? So
Right.
this kind of had this concept. And then the concept of Sarah actually came from my personal life because I had a friend who was in a really horrible relationship. And there was a part of this book, there was a bit of a love letter to her of, please get out, kind of.
Wow.
So, and there's a section, and one of the legal side of Kaio is actually um, not for horrifyingly, came from amalgam of some of the legal cases that I had to work on as a lawyer.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, that literally is a blend of news and life, isn't it? And
It
work.
absolutely is. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
amazing. Thank you for that question, Sophie. Please feel
Thanks,
free to
Libby.
ask some more. Um, so there's a lot of focus on authors writing series as a more profitable way, potentially, of building a long-time author brand.
Mm,
Obviously, if somebody likes one of the books and then they find out you've written others in a series, then they're more likely to go and want to buy the other books. It just, makes sense. The way you've done the series is very clever, because you've not done it sort of, there's going to be like 10 books and you've got to read 1 to 10. So if you join the crowd at like book 9, you've then got to catch up with the previous
mm.
9. You've actually done it in a really clever way. But have you got any advice or sort of top tips for any of the aspiring writers that are watching this, in terms of actually like the more profitability side of writing and self-publishing a series?
Yeah. So first, full transparency. I did not start out that clever. So
It's learned.
yeah, the first thing that I wrote of this series was a 975,000 word book.
Gee, 975,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Hands up, who wants to read that? Can you
yeah,
imagine
no, exactly.
that
And so,
a year later? It's
yeah.
like
And so what I realized in that, right, was I'm not going to be able to ask anyone to read this. You're never going to be able to print it. It's like, no, right? And the bad thing is that 975,000 words only got us up to Ghosting Academy, right? So, so I realized, okay, as a writer, it's a bit more difficult to craft smaller books because, back to the whole, it's more difficult to have clarity, right? It's more difficult to craft smaller books because you have to have a very tight arc of the
yeah,
characters. You have to know where you're going. You have to make sure that those arcs match,
yeah.
but you get more books.
Yeah.
So, and you're not torturing your reader with forcing them to go to deal with things that, no one should have to read that. I mean, seriously. Like,
I just have this vision of how big that would actually
oh,
be. And
oh
like the
no,
print cost.
I actually printed it at some point.
Is
And
it like that?
it's 8 huge folders of yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. So like I said, I didn't start out clever. but I realized my mistake quickly
Good for you.
and then went, okay, this is how I need to readapt it. And luckily I had a son who was very helpful in this process and gently saying,
He's pointing them out. He's pointing them out in the background there.
yeah.
That's
So
very funny.
yeah.
There they are.
Um,
That's the
yeah.
original stories. I mean, I do question how much that would cost to print. I mean, just knowing how much it costs to print, a sort of a 300-page book,
Yeah.
which is like maybe sort of 75,000 words. Can you imagine? I
Yeah.
mean, you'd have to charge sort of about 500 quid.
Yeah, exactly. And it's torturing because there's a lot of detail in what I write. And so I realize I can, if I make the book shorter, I can also give people more detail, like more depth. I
Yeah,
can build it out a little bit. And but the difficulty in doing that is then you as a writer have to correct craft arcs for all these different stories.
yeah,
That being said, I think it allows you, as a writer, it allows you a lot of opportunity to provide things for your reader to allow them to engage, to your point, with different types of books. So like
mm,
the first three books have romance, have paranormal in them.
yeah,
But one, Kaio is a romance with a legal thriller. Fanny Fireflies is romance, supernatural romance, and historical fiction. Bright Midnights is YA, paranormal, coming of age. And so what happens is you allow your reader the chance they like this one thing. So they come in on the one thing and then they realize, maybe I do like these other things as well. Maybe that's so I think it's offering more to the people that's reading your books, at least for me, right? And I so appreciate the people who read and the people who I know my books are a little bit of a litmus test, right? I'm asking readers to think a lot. I'm asking readers to ponder things, and it's a bit of a litmus test. And so I appreciate the people who really read it. I appreciate the people who read it for story, but read it for theme, but read it for, I appreciate the people who come away and say that made me uncomfortable. Good, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for providing
reaction.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of like the actual series itself, like the actual kind of
Mm,
the journey that you've been on,
mm.
are there any other learnings that you've had other than don't do us at 975,000 whatever?
So
what,
I
what are the key learnings have you had during the journey so far?
So, so interestingly, I'm going to talk about a little bit of something. So I'm going to, I've learned that there's a different ways to promote yourself, right? And that this can be fun as a self-published author. It can be really fun. So we've started going to Comic-Cons. So I'm going to be at the Chicago Comic-Con. They've asked me to actually speak on a panel. And
Yes.
one of the things I'm speaking about is what I'm going to talk about right now. I think as a writer, you need to give yourself grace in terms of selling of your book. You're a startup, right? You are coming into this as a new business. You are growing something from nothing.
Yeah.
It takes 5 years,
Yeah.
right? For your out, because I've done startups, it takes 5 years to be profitable, minimum.
Yeah.
At 3 years, maybe you can get some angel investors, right?
Yeah.
But it takes that time. So if you come into it and you're not selling or you're expecting yourself to be wildly profitable in the first year, it's not happening, and you're just torturing yourself. There's a lot of noise out there on Amazon. It's hard to make it through the noise. Any way you can do to get past that noise, meeting people in public, going to conventions, going to book fairs, anything that you can do to stand out a little bit. And particularly, I found to meet people one on one, readers one
Yeah.
on one. I love that. I love meeting readers and talking to them. I mean, just they actually are interested in my book. I'm happy to talk about that. So, that piece of it feels very warm.
Yeah.
And I I I really enjoy engaging with readers. And I think that a lot of writers sort of have a fear of connecting. I think
Yeah.
there's people, I mean, obviously, you write something, it's very personal to you, right? It's very emotional to you. And there's a certain fear of people rejecting you, right? That's a real human fear.
Yeah.
But most people who come up to talk to you or most people who interact with you aren't going to be doing that.
No.
They're just there because they're interested.
Yeah.
And that part of the journey is really exciting. And the Comic Cons are actually great because you can dress up as anybody you want to, show up. People, there's no judgment. So those have been really, really great. The book fair at Yalk, fantastic. It's
Mm.
driving, and thank you, Helen, for that.
You're welcome.
I should say here, Helen actually was the first person to manage to get in the indie people in Yalk, which is not an indie place.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I'm a massive champion of indies, but I think like you stand out in a sea of indies because of the amount of marketing and effort that you do put in yourself. And I know we do a lot of stuff for you, but you do 10 times the amount of stuff that we do. You are always doing something. And I think that's the thing about how to build an author brand and how to have a successful author career and write a good series that sells is you have to do the both things. You have to do the writing and you got to do the marketing. And when I say marketing, I also mean the selling. And I think there's a lot of people generally, not just authors, who are very uncomfortable with the sales process. And it's like, if you can't sell your own book, you're going to struggle. You've got to really be the biggest cheerleader for your own book. And I love that you get out there and you talk to people and I mean, you sold out, didn't you?
yes, a couple times, yeah. In Yalk, I did.
Um,
But the interesting, but see, I'm also really fortunate because I have a son who gets out there and does that too.
Everyone needs a son like that.
Yes. So I have to do a bit of my mom brag. So, because I have to. Sorry, Seb, I'm doing the mom brag. So Seb, he's 16 now, but when I wrote Bright Midnights, which is the one that got the Editor's Choice Award at Book Life, he edited that book at age 12.
It's amazing, honestly.
So he's always been very much a part of it. And that's the thing. If you have people around you, the first people who read your book and love your book, connect with them, connect with the people who like the book and they
Yeah,
help you
yeah, give
sell.
back. Yeah, 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 yeah.
They help you. And that's what I would ask everybody who's on this call. If for me, tell one person you know about this book, these books. That would be more than I could ask for, right? So, and as an indie author, you need that. But bring a friend with you. Go places and bring one of your friends who can be a cheerleader. The right now, what and something else, Helen, you probably know we're doing this. Me and a couple of the other authors who were at Yalk have decided that we're going to read chapters of each other's books onto social media,
Love that.
to just support each other.
Yeah, it's so nice. That's what I love about the writing community is that there is so much support. If you find the right people, obviously it's not like human to human, so you're not going to get everyone's going to be lovely. But if you find that group of people, they will really be able to help you, and then you can start talking about their book to your people, and they talk about your book to their people, and it's just a lovely thing to happen. I'm loving that people are talking about their favorite books in the chat as well and their favorite characters. Yeah, definitely put in your favorite characters. I'd love to see who your favorite characters are. um okay, has anyone got any other questions? Shove them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, please do. I'll ask one more and then we'll go to we'll ask you guys to ask some questions. So what is the most, without trying to drag the mood down, but what's the most challenging thing you've encountered during your author career so far?
As much as I don't really like to think about it, there is a certain amount of misogyny in the publishing world. Um,
Yeah.
so I tell the story because it was actually funny to me. So Coyote, the first book, got a little bit of pushback in the US because of, even though it's on the back of the book that it was 1905 when he was around, because of him appearing young. And so we went to a few people in publishing, and I think Helen and I was talking to you about it earlier. I became to realize that a lot of times people who have a real difficulty with that um, are people who are more physical, right? That their perception of reality is more physical. And so it's harder for them to imagine the difference between someone's age, physical age, and mental age, emotional age. Um, but the last one was that's what just made me eventually decide to go to self-publishing,
Mm.
is because we had a few people get very weird about it and make me want to change my characters, which I can't. It's a long arc, right? I
Yeah.
can't, like, it's there for a reason. But the last one was this guy, and Helen, you've heard this story. So I'm talking to this guy from New Jersey, and he said, well, it's not really the age difference that bothers me, the perception of age difference, because you cover that and you've talked about it. It's just that, I don't know, it's unbecoming for a woman in her 40s to still have sexual feelings. And so,
Wow.
yeah. So what do you do with that? So I'm looking at the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, my remember it was my husband or my child who's rubbing my back at that point, like, Mom, don't kill them, Mom, don't kill them. And so I said, just out of curiosity, how old are you? And he was like, I'm in my 40s. Uh-huh. And do you have a partner? Yes. Uh-huh. You know, so, and people don't think a thing about Twilight. He's 100 something, she's 17, right? It's the same kind of supernatural thing. So it's a
Yeah.
woman being older.
Yeah.
And that I just kind of, and that was in the US, right? And I have had very little of that in the UK or in France or in Australia or anywhere else. But that one for me was like really eye-opening. And that was early. That was
Mm,
before current things happening, right? But that for me was startling to me that we're still there.
yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of weirdness in publishing though. There's a lot of problems, to be honest, in terms of like equality and diversity and inclusion, which I am all about. And I just think that's just one of the big problems in publishing. And that's why, again, indie publishing is so good, because just because somebody said something that stupid doesn't mean that it stops you from getting the book out there. Imagine if there was only the route to publishing was only through these hierarchical structures of traditional publishing, would be very limited in terms of the
Five
success.
guys in their 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Who think that women over the age of 40 should have no feelings of any nature.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So please, if you want to unmute yourself, please ask a question. Now's your chance to steal the spotlight and fire away. I have
Come on,
got
guys.
you
I
are
know.
very welcome to ask something. People are saying in the chat about who their favorite characters are. Amelie, Clovis, Dante, Cara, Veronica, Laszlo, Amelie. Love that. Fun. Hudson.
Hmm.
Mhm. So cool. Everyone's gone quiet.
Yeah, I'm very surprised because I know there's a lot of talkative people out there. You've asked questions.
If you don't feel comfortable asking, don't worry. I will carry on asking. But if you do want to leap in, you're very welcome to at any point. Um, oh, April said, I'm hoping that we see more of Clovis. Are we going to see more of Clovis?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
um, okay, so who is then the target audience for this series, would you say?
Ooh,
It's a hard question.
that's a really difficult
Yeah,
question.
I know.
Can I say something that's kind of not incredibly PC? Smart people. Right? I mean, it's the people who like the series tend to be, more introspective, more thoughtful, because there's a lot in there.
Mm,
So I think my target audience is people who are open, interested in learning, interested in examining themselves. Because when you're reading a book, like when all of us are reading a book, you are looking at yourself and saying, could I be this character? Right? Is there a character in here that ties to me? And sometimes when you run into a character, say a bad character or a villain, right? You say, why is this person so different from me? Why is it that this person went bad when maybe I didn't? I always used to ask that whenever I saw stuff in the news. Like you hear somebody, this horrible serial killer, and you think, in the same circumstances they had been in, would I be different?
mm,
Right? So you hear someone treated really badly or going through abuse and all this stuff. And, like if exactly the same circumstances happened to me, would I be different? So I like the introspection that people have. And I know some people have like asked those questions of me in terms of what the motivation is of the characters, what they're looking for. There's actually quite a bit of interest and conversation about Kyle because people had seen him in later books. And then they go back to his origin, well, not really his origin, but his relationship with Sarah. So,
mm. We've just had a question come through to me on the direct message asking, do you have to do lots of different types of research for your books? Like, how do you research your books that you're
oh,
writing?
oh yeah, I'm an obsessive researcher. Like this goes to that. I don't ever want to be untrue, like to the world that I'm creating. So, like I researched the prices of the menus in the 1940s at diners because one of my characters was going to order something, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So I really I believe in research. I believe in doing the thing if you can. Matter of fact, the other day, this is me. I so in the current book I'm working on, a current book I'm working on, there's going to be a thing where there's some car chases, which I've never done before. I've never written that kind of thing. So I actually took a stunt driving course.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. So so I learned
Was
how to
it
do
fun?
it was really fun. It was in France, which was really funny because he didn't speak English very well and my French is terrible. So like I'm sitting there, but I managed to like do donuts. We spin like
Oh
this. I
wow.
managed to do the really cool thing where you see in movies where it's like the car is going straight forward at a flat angle like this, and then it swerves to the side and
Yeah.
stops. I did that. Um, I didn't
Nice.
get a chance to do a 180, but I said I will do this again. But I wanted to see what it felt like, right? To what it,
I love that.
yeah,
Oh my God, you do. You really do throw yourself into the research. Uh,
yeah. I
so you've
want
got,
these worlds to be real, right? It needs
yeah,
to feel real for me. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know anyone that's done a stunt driving course for a car scene. Like that is epic. Um, so what was the intended perception of Clovis by the end of Bright Midnights is one of the questions.
You should really be questioning him at the end of Bright Midnights, right? I don't want to talk too much about that, but yeah. Um, Clovis's arc is a long one, and there's a lot you don't see. And that starts to, in ghosting, you start to see a little bit of that, right?
Mhm.
And it comes out more over time with some of the other books.
Okay.
So you see his perception, the perception of him from others. I have a question for those who have read at least Bright Midnights and Ghosting. What do you think of Rose?
Come on, people, put it in the chat. Tell us what you think of Rose. People are also talking about some of the other characters, so some of the secondary characters in Fanning Fireflies, because they're complexer, different nuances. So like the factory owner,
Mm.
yeah.
So it's Fanning Fireflies is also interesting because Fanning Fireflies was a bit of the character Veronica is
Mm,
sort of like a love letter to my mother because that's kind of how my mother grew up. And my mother was on the spectrum before that was a known thing, right?
right.
So I didn't say it, but I wrote Veronica as a character who is on the spectrum, right? And I worked in a cigarette factory when I was in high school because we lived in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So I worked in RJ Reynolds in the summers at a cigarette factory to
Wow.
get extra money. And so I took this, and it's because it was such a fascinating experience for me. I was like, okay, I could put a cigarette factory in this. I can make her working there.
Wow. What did you do in the cigarette factory? What was your
Oh, I
job?
had several jobs depending on the year. So one year, the actual job that Veronica has to go do at some point or has to go into, my job was to sit there
Uh-huh.
in the dark, basically with low lighting, where tobacco is running down these tubes. And
Right.
when the buzzer started beeping, zzz, 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 you had to go and find there was a clog. So you had to stick your hand down in the tube and unclog the clog, right? Which was normally okay, but in cigarette factories, because in cigarettes they usually put gin and sugar, you would occasionally get rats.
Oh no, don't.
Yeah, yeah. So that was one job. The other one was even worse in that way, which is I was supposed to be picking things out of chewing tobacco that was going through. So I sat on the line. My job was to sit on the line and watch the tobacco go by, right?
Right.
And on Monday, it was fine. You know, you're picking stems out of it. On Friday, you know the roaches on a first name basis. They are all in the shit because they only like fumigate once a week. So,
Ah,
and I'm sitting there one day kind of going, you know, pulling the stuff out, trying to ignore the roaches because they creep me out, obviously. And all of a sudden, something runs over my hand, goes back into the machine and goes, and they stopped. I screamed loud enough they heard me over the machines. They came and stopped. They looked, they dug through it, and they were like, they couldn't find anything, and they're like, oh, just go on through. Which is why cigarette companies end up settling out of court a lot for people who bite into things in chewing tobacco. Yeah. Yes.
What do you think it was that went do, 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 do?
Oh, it was a rat for sure.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my God, that's
Yeah.
absolutely. I was thinking maybe a spider, but no, it was like a
Oh
full-on
no,
bee.
no, no, no. No, the thing was like this big, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. Wow. I mean, that's quite a job. That's quite a summer job.
Yeah. It was a summer job. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but and it was really interesting to be with the people who were in, which I wanted to bring out in the factory settings in Fanning Fireflies. There's a whole culture that ends up being evolving around the factory
Hmm.
because you have people working on different shifts and they they have this entire world that
Yeah.
exists in that
Yeah.
place that you because they're mostly there.
Yeah.
And they were all super excited in the summer because the college students would come in, which would give them something new to focus on.
Yeah.
And so it was fascinating, all that. So, it's that was an experience I thought I wanted to put on paper, right?
Cool.
Um,
That's so cool. Rachel has said, Rose, I feel is a true villain in my eyes at the moment. But then I had the complete strop with Clovis at the end of Bright Midnight, so I can't believe she'll have a redemption.
so yes. Um, so you will so Rose is an intensely complex character. She is a villain. You see her as nothing but a villain in Bright Midnights. But we were talking earlier, like where I mentioned earlier, knowing the backstory of someone, knowing how they get where they get.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff comes out about Rose in Mirrored Lands, which is not the next book, but the one after that. So you get sort of what's her deal is. That no one is in my books, no one is perfect and no one is completely flawed either.
Mm-hmm.
I think the closest character I have to one that's completely flawed is in Bright Midnights is Sawyer, the vice principal, he's the one that I know his backstory. I know the backstories of all my characters. If I put someone in a book, they have a backstory.
Yeah.
Even like side people, they have a backstory. So he's the one that I have the most trouble getting to because I know his backstory and it's not. But so I'm interested to see how people respond over
Okay.
time.
Interesting. So Sophie's asked, what kind of books do you enjoy reading?
So when I was growing up, I was a horror girl. So I read Stephen King, I read Clive Barker, I read, H.P. Lovecraft, the old horror stuff. But I also liked, then there were the other ones that I just kind of read across the gamut. One of my favorite books ever was Watership Down.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. I think the book that I've read that has the most perfect ending ever is Perfume.
Oh, yeah.
So, I like things across the board. As I'm writing right now, I don't have nearly as much time to read as I used to.
Hmm.
But I think I spent my whole life reading, so all of that's just in there. But growing up, I was very influenced but the horror guys growing up, they didn't just write horror. It wasn't like slasher now. It was like if you read, for example, Clive Barker did a series of books like that had Weave World of Magica and The Great and Secret Show. They weren't horror, but he was a horror guy. These were clearly much more fantasy with horror elements. I think that's where I started my love of the cross genre idea, right? Because for me, reading a romantic part in a horror book felt more romantic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it was like against these, fighting against these incredible odds. Yeah.
Cool. So Sebastian said it might just be me, but Kaya feels very neurodivergent coded.
Kaio himself, as my own child. Yeah, so he is. Um, and because I think the backstory, I can tell a little bit about the backstory for that. So when Kyle went into the hole, so Kyle went into a hole when he was, in his late teens, in Brazil in 1905. He got infected by a virus while in the hole. This virus stopped his aging process and caused his body to heal very easily. But what it took in as kind of like its penance or its cost for that was his ability to feel. So for the longest time, he feels at a very much less level. He's borderline sociopathic, right? Until he sees Sarah. And it's because he can only bond to people he saw before that happened to him. And he saw her in a dream before that happened to him. So he has lived this kind of life where he's gone around from place to place. He feels, but not strongly about people. He's lived his life in his head, analytically examining things, that kind of thing. So when he runs into her, it is life changing, soul changing, which kind of explains why he behaves the way he does in ghosting. Like it's yeah.
Amazing. I love how you talk about your characters. It's like I get like really into it. It's like you're telling another story about, "Oh, tell me more." Okay, so if anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop them in, but I'm just going to ask a couple more and then I think we'll wrap up. What are your goals for this series? So what do you hope for the series in, say, 5 years' time?
So it's funny because when we were working, so we worked with Helen on Author Brand, and like one of the things that we were talking about as a group, as a family, was what do you want for this series? And my son is like he wants it to be movie or TV series. And actually, as a family, he wrote a script for a first pilot for Kyle as a series. So he's kind of working on that.
Very
And
talented.
that's something that we are really interested in. For my husband, he's like, I just want to break even. Yeah, we all have our goals. But for me, what I want is I want people to engage with these books enough. I want them to read them enough that there is a significant level of fan fiction. This is what I want. So I
You have
want
said that from the beginning to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I want people to love these characters, know these characters, want to know these characters enough that they will take them on themselves and build it. And I have no problem with that.
Lovely. I love that you're prepared to hand it over like that.
Mm.
That's really cool. Francis has asked, is the next series in the pipeline?
So I am writing different books in this world. So there are other books coming in this world. A series per se, no, I think they're more standalones within the world right now. One of the things I'm thinking about doing within the year, because I think I have the material to do it, is to write a book of short stories about the world, the things that characters have happened that I haven't been able to make it into books.
Oh, cool.
Um, I had this idea of basing it kind of on the four times of the year, not so much different seasons like the Stephen King had, but more like the holidays in the year, and having one story that has a light motif and one story that's darker. And so I already have a number of short stories that I've written about this, or segments of their lives that I wrote just to create the world that I turning into stories.
Oh, wow. So you've already done the work because, like you say, you already know the backstories of all your different characters. So it's like it's right there.
Yeah, exactly. I could write in this world for 15 years because there's
Do you
enough
think you
there.
will? Do you think you'll stay in this world?
So in some variation, so I on my notes right now, I have I think now 79 different novel ideas. Um, all within this kind of all based in this world, but with different stories, different filters, different angles, different people
Wow.
belonging to different areas. Yeah. So I doubt I will have time to write all that before I'm dead. Right?
9 ideas. How are you gonna how do you filter through that to know, right, this one's gonna be the next one? How
So I think one of the things I know is that I'm going to start doing some of them as short stories rather than full novels. So that's kind of how I can get through it, I think. And I have this weird thing where I dream movies. I actually dream full movies and I cast people in them. For some reason, James McAvoy is a regular appearer in most of in
it's
my
pretty cool.
yeah. Um, and I mean, there's a soundtrack behind it, like full things. So when I have one of those that we call them a movie dream, I get up in the morning and I try and write as much of it down as I possibly can. And some of the things I've done have started as that. So once you start writing it, though, it takes on its own life. Like my style of writing. So I tend to write what I call train stations. So it's like I come up with a book, I have the main things I think are going to happen. And that's the structural piece. I write the structural piece only during the day. I tend to write the things that are more emotional, more descriptive in the evening. I've never gotten up in the middle of the night and written something that I haven't used. So
You get up in the middle of the night and write.
yeah, if it's like sometimes I'll get up and I'll have a thought, I'll be thinking something and I'll
Wow.
get up and go write it down. I've always used that because I'm out of my own way. Like my editor brain is not there keeping me from doing something. And so I'm almost always use those pieces that
So
I've had.
cool. I love that. That's so cool. Um, Francis has also asked, who would your ideal actors be to play your characters in the films or series? So obviously we've just said James McAvoy. Who would he play? Who would James McAvoy play in?
James. I have a character named James. Yeah, totally in ghosting. I think I I don't know for Emily. I haven't found somebody for her that I've never really saw someone that said, okay, that could be her. I think for Kara, if she were younger, it would be Tilda Swinton.
Oh, okay, yeah. Love that.
Um, I think Widget and Ghosting would be Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh my God, amazing.
Um,
One of my favorite actors.
yeah. No, he's amazing. I'm trying to think of the other one. So, um, I've actually thought about this before, and I'm trying to think of the other characters that I think it's harder. So, a lot of the girls I've tended to pick variations, or in my mind, it's usually people I know, right? Kind
Mm.
of visuals of people I know, more than kind of Hollywood people. Oh, another person who shows up in a lot of my dreams is Keanu Reeves in terms of playing a role.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's more just visual. Like, he's such a
Yeah.
nice person, but I think he has to play action films.
Lots of running.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, exactly.
always fun doing this though, like the whole kind of, and who would play who. But I think what would also work really well is like a Netflix sort of series, like a series of like episodic to
Yeah,
your writing.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. I think, like Sebastian says, like the different books lend more to different things. So Kyle lends itself better to being a series because
Mhm.
it's also almost the chapters are almost episodic.
Yeah, yeah,
Bright
that's how I
Mid
see it.
Bright Midnights feels more like a movie. And
Yeah,
so each of the different books kind of has a different thing that would be the way
yeah.
to do it. I actually think for Kyle, I was actually looking at some people who work in computer and basically digital stuff to do some of the visuals in that first scene, just to see what we could do with that. At this point, it's like everything we do, we're doing for fun. Like, well, this is a fun thing our family does. So I have also have friends at BFI that I've made over the years. So we kind of talk to them about stuff too. But that's the other thing. As a writer, talk to people.
Mm.
Seriously, just have conversations with people. I was on a train with a woman coming from Paris to the UK. And we just got in this conversation. She's my age, right? But she had this way, she was kind of just glowy, like a glowy woman. And I was like, okay, I really like you. And so we're having conversations. I'm telling her about my kids. I'm doing the mom brag. She's doing the mom brag, all this. And so she said, I showed her a clip of Seth, and she was like, oh, he's very talented. She goes, you don't like agents, do you? I've sensed that. I said, not really. I'm kind of, and she goes, I work for CAA. So, and I went, oh, okay.
I really like agents, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But we ended up like getting to know each other. This is Claire.
Yes, I
Yeah.
gathered. Yeah, yeah.
And she's actually looking at us on possibly how you work with indie authors and agents in a different way, not as representing you for everything, but for some particular bits of it. But I think
Mm.
you meet the most interesting people, and even if you can't, even if it's not something that's career oriented, you can steal their lives and put it.
Or something they've said, like a little piece of yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
dialogue. Yeah. And
Amateurs.
people are getting into this whole conversation around widget and the widget twist. Can we talk
Okay.
about that for a second?
Okay.
I mean, where did that where did that come from? Like what were you doing?
What's the question?
So people are saying they're really upset about widget.
Oh, they read ghosting, right?
Oh, your son's saying don't spoil it.
Okay. So just hold on.
I'm getting the basically. I think what we can all take away from this is if something's happened in one of the books, you're going to get the answer to why that happened in future books.
Yeah.
So, you know, it will be all wrapped up. I was saying before we all came in that I really just hope it's not you know, and it won't be because it's Lexi. But, you know, we don't want a lost situation. You know, that TV series Lost, we
God,
didn't
no.
want a lost situation where we're all left like, what? We've just spent how many years watching this series and it's just ended like that. This is not going to be the case for
No. I can promise you I will stick the landing on this series because I have this I have like we were talking about this. I get absolutely offended when I've gone through a whole series and then at the end of the series they're like, "Okay, and we're done." You know, we're saying, you know, it's like sex. It's like afterwards you just leave, you know, like nothing. Just okay, bye. You know, just that no. So I do not do that with the series because I hate it. So I will stick the landing. I promise. I'm
well,
not saying what I'm going to take you through before that, but I will
yeah,
stick.
I mean, I was going to say thank you for everything that comes between now and then because I think there's going to be a lot of up and downs and shutting the book moments. Like Rachel Jess just said, she was like, I just shut the book. Like, no, that's not happening. Thank you so much, Lexi, for all your amazing insights this evening, and thank you everyone for your questions and for being here and joining us and joining in this fun conversation. I mean,
Also,
it's
if
just
any of you guys are not on my mailing list, if you want to be
yes.
on it, put your email on there.
Absolutely, and then you will get sneak peeks of the next book before it comes out, which is just to confirm before the end of the year, right?
Should be, we're looking at September or October.
Okay, cool.
um, is the timing for that. I also, I will actually start sending people bits of backstories as well from the web page. So
So people need to go to your website, right?
yeah, yeah.
So if you go to they're saying it's too long to wait. Let me just put the link into the website so then you can all go from here. And then yeah, sign up and then you'll get access to bonus content and you'll be the first ones to know when the book's coming out. And
Oh, also. So if for those in London, I will be at the London Comic Con at the end of May. And at the London Comic Con, I have the opportunity to have the nice shiny
oh, it's
book,
so pretty.
the foil ones. So they're in, and I also have a hardback copies. I can't do that on Amazon, but it's nice, pretty foil.
Is this the MCM Comic Con?
Yeah,
Let's
MCM
see.
Comic Con.
Yeah, I'm just
Yep.
going to put that link in as well so people can see what we're talking about.
So come see
Yay!
me. Come see me. Come see me. I love it when you come see me.
Nice. And you're also so you're doing that Comic Con. You're doing
Chicago.
Chicago
That-
in when's that?
that's in April. That's like in a couple weeks.
That's before.
So
Okay.
yeah. So that's new for me, and I get to do the panel discussion. And then I'm doing the indie author book fair at the beginning of May with
Lot
Ian.
going on. A lot going on. Brilliant. As it should be. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Lexi. Keep
And
going.
thank
Keep
you. And
writing.
I love you guys. Thank you guys so much. Really, seriously. I like from the bottom of my heart, really, seriously. So email me, ask me anything.
Love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much, Lexi. We cannot wait for the next book. If you can get it out a bit quicker, that'd be great. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.